Welcome back, everyone, to OpenLine. We are talking with MTSU political science professor Dr. John Vile about all things politics and something else that happened today. House Democrats accuse oil companies of ripoff on gas prices in a hearing. So they had a hearing, call in oil executives and say, what's going on? Why are prices so high? And accuse them of inflating the prices. What about this hearing? What are your thoughts?
You know, it's not the first time this happens. One of the ironies is I'm still waiting for some brave soul the next time prices go down $1 or $2 to get on and ask why they've gone down so fast. You know, the laws of supply and demand, there may be more than that here, but you know, think about it. With the world situation the way it is, if you were an oil company, would you want to sell everything that you had at a low price right now when there's a chance that you may not have enough to go around 2 or 3 months from now? So, you know, and again, are people going to take, you know, there's always the possibility of price gouging, but the way to deal with that is probably not so much in a congressional hearing as it is through existing legal channels. You know, there are laws that prohibit taking advantage of people's need, and if that's going on, we can deal with it in that fashion rather than just, you know, basically we're trolling for votes when we do these.
Trolling for votes, and that means Democrats realize they have a tough road ahead of them with the midterm elections. One of the issues that's likely to come up is inflation, gas prices, that kind of thing. So you think maybe that's part of what's at play with a hearing like this? Absolutely,
and the same thing would happen if the Republicans were in control. You know, somebody would be asking the same kind of questions. You know, one of the strange things about American history is almost every midterm election, the party of the president loses votes in both House and Senate. And the Senate, of course, right now is evenly split. So even the loss of a single seat or two could make, you know, we think hearings are tough now. Imagine trying to get somebody through if there was a 52 or 53 majority on behalf of Republicans. And, you know, the same is true in the House. So each side is trying to position itself as well as they can. And I think that the great unknown is whether, you know, what is the degree to which the Republican Party is going to continue to identify with Donald Trump, and to what degree is that identification going to help them or is it going to hurt them? And, you know, my own view is that Trump's, particularly his initial praise of Putin as being, you know, well, this is, you know, he's really a smart man by invading his neighbor, that didn't sit very well with me. And, you know, when you see the atrocities there, I think it doesn't sit well with a lot of other people. On the other hand, Trump said some very outrageous things in the last 6 years, and often his popularity has gone up when I thought it would go down.
Yeah, he's had situations where you think, okay, boy, that's gonna be big trouble for him, and that was not the case. That comment certainly raised eyebrows, but he still is holding these rallies and has huge attendance at these rallies. And so I think that is a fascinating question. What role will he play in the midterms? He's going after a certain number of Congress people. He's identified people that he wants to beat. And it'll be fascinating to see if he's able to kind of gather the resources to beat those people. Can he do that?
Right. Well, you know, he's a little bit like Richard Nixon. He has his own enemies list. But there seems to be a little strategy. He seems to be backing away from some, you know, he seems to want to pick people who are already winning and then claim that they're going to win because of his endorsement. And I'm not sure that that's necessarily going to work that way.
That's pretty smart. Why not do that? And so, all right, you said throughout history there's traditionally been this situation where the party where the president's in power loses seats in the House and Senate. Everyone's thinking that's what's going to happen this time. Is that your thought? Is that where it looks like we're headed?
That would be where you would expect things to go. Again, Ukraine is sort of like throwing, you know, you're not only throwing bombs at Ukraine, in a sense, you're throwing a bomb into American domestic politics too, because no one knows, what the outcome is. And, who would have predicted that? Well, I guess we've had Ronald Reagan, so maybe we could have, but who would have predicted that a comic on television would rise to be a leader that we haven't seen the likes of, or very few, since Winston Churchill? Who would have expected that he would have been able to, show the kind of national solidarity in the face of such brutality? So, maybe that's part of what you learn through prayer, is that sometimes you can be grateful that your prayers aren't answered. Ultimately, as Lincoln said, God has his own purposes. One of the most famous quotations from Lincoln is during the Civil War. He says, "We both read the same Bible. We pray to the same God. We're each asking for victory, and there's no way that God can give it to both of us. God has his own purposes." And often, that's characteristic of politics in general.
That's interesting. And certainly Zelensky has risen to the moment. There is no doubt about that. All right. And so what do you think? We have some time here. What do you think President Biden will run again for re-election? What do you think is going to happen there?
It's hard to know. I think he's done better maybe than some people have given him credit for. But, frankly, both he and Trump are fairly, and I shouldn't say this because I'm getting to the age myself, but they're not spring chickens, either of them. and a health scare on the, just think of President Eisenhower went through at least one or two heart attacks while he was in office. Lyndon Johnson went through, had to have surgery while he was in office, and they were much younger than either of the two people that are anticipated to be running next election. So just about anything could happen.
Yes, definitely. That'll be so interesting. What's going to happen there? Midterms come first.
Yes.
And so I'll ask you on the other side. So do you think Trump will run? Do you think he'll be the Republican nominee? What about that?
Trump is like Theodore Roosevelt. See if I can get it right. They used to say that he wanted to be the babe at every christening, the bride at every wedding, and the corpse at every funeral. And so I would predict that whether Trump runs or not, we're going to see a lot of, he's going to have us believe that it's really about him, even if he's not the one on the ticket.
Do you think Mike Pence is going to run? Have you heard anything about that?
Well, Pence is in a difficult position because he chose to go on the Trump bandwagon, and in my judgment, got off at a critical moment, did the right thing. But, for Trump supporters, he's considered to be a traitor. He's not, to use a term that Trump uses, he's not a high energy kind. I mean, he's a more thoughtful, more composed kind of person. He says he has the policies that are similar to Trump, but he says them in a less provocative and then hence less, fashion that's less likely to get people excited enough maybe to go out and vote for him. DeSantis, of course, seems to be.
Yeah, DeSantis is a big one. And all right, well, Dr. Vile, we have to go here, but thank you so much for coming on. Great to have you as
welcome.
always.
I enjoyed it.
We'll come back, wrap everything up right after this.